I'm going to start with a short history of Memorial Day. I promise it'll be pretty short. Relatively early in our nation's existence, we fought a great civil war. In that struggle from 1861 to 1865, 620,000 American soldiers gave their lives in our national pursuit to form a more perfect union. In March of 1866, a Miss Mary Ann Williams from Georgia wrote a letter that was printed in newspapers across the southern states. She urged adopting a national holiday to recognize the sacrifices of soldiers who died in the Civil War by decorating their graves with flowers. Her proposal was adopted, and on April 26, 1866, the graves of Confederate and Union soldiers across much of the South were decorated with flowers. The holiday was originally called Decoration Day. Former Union General John Logan noticed these observances, and he coordinated similar services throughout the North beginning on May 30th, 1868. By the 1890s, most of these local and state traditions in the North and South had merged, and Decoration Day was celebrated nationwide on May 30th. With the Spanish-American War and World War I, the holiday gradually became known as Memorial Day, and it was extended to honor all servicemen and women who died while serving their country. And finally, in 1971, by act of Congress, Memorial Day was set to be observed on the last Monday in May. Today, here at Willamette National Cemetery, and across cemeteries and parade fields, parades on Main Street, and other events big and small all across America, Americans are gathering to honor the men and women who made that ultimate sacrifice, those who died defending our freedoms and our way of life. Since our nation's birth, 1,280,000 American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardmen have made that ultimate sacrifice for us. 314 of those service members who were killed in action are interred here at Willamette National Cemetery. Our obligation as a nation is to remember and honor their sacrifice. The 1,280,000 lives cut short is something that's really hard for me to fully comprehend. It's too large of a number. It almost seems like it's a statistic and not individuals. Not all of these, but most of these lives cut short were young men. How many marriages that never took place? How many children that were never born? Does that sacrifice represent how many young widows and widowers are left behind, grieving parents? When I think of their sacrifice, these are the things I think about. The sacrifice might have been, but never was. Life lost, life given in sacrifice in service to our nation. The sacrifices we honor today have been made by so many men and women that I thought I would talk about a few individuals. When I think about individuals interred here at Willamette National Cemetery, it helps me appreciate the sacrifice of so many. On December 7th, 1941, U.S. Navy sailor David Edmondson and Marvin Atkins were beginning their a normal Sunday morning on the USS Oklahoma, a U.S. Navy battleship berthed in Pearl Harbor. Edmondson was 21 years old. Atkins was only 20 years old. Like many sailors that day, specifically how and why they died is unknown. For 7 decades, they lay with honor in graves marked unknown at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. But America is not a nation that forgets its defenders. The Defense, POW, and MIA Accounting Agency eventually identified their remains using DNA technology, and in 2019, their living relatives had them repatriated and interred here. Both Seaman Edmondson and Atkins are interred here in section EE2, over there. Corporal Billy Jimerson joined the U.S. Army from Texas. He was a member of the 25th Infantry Division. On November 28, 1950, he was captured by enemy forces during combat operations near Anju, North Korea. Corporal Jimerson was marched to a prisoner prisoner of war camp in Paitong, North Korea, known as Camp 5, where he died of malnutrition on April 25th, 1951. He was 20 years old. He was buried in the camp cemetery. His remains were returned to U.S. custody in 1954. However, they could not be identified at that time, and they were also reinterred at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific as an unknown. Modern forensics eventually allowed for the identification of Corporal Jimerson's remains. In 2017, Corporal Jimerson's remains were repatriated and reinterred here in Section X, just over there. Larry Dow grew up in Oregon City. He joined the Army in 1969. On February 23, 1971, Specialist Dahl was just 21 years old. He was serving the 27th Transportation Battalion of the U.S. Army Support Command in Vietnam. He was manning a truck-mounted machine gun that was providing security for convoy operations. On that day, during fighting near An Key in the Binh Dinh province of Vietnam, an enemy hand grenade landed in the back of his truck. Without hesitation, Specialist Dahl smothered the blast with his body to protect his teammates around him. For his self-sacrifice, Specialist Dahl was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Specialist Dahl is interred here, right behind the main flag at those 4 flags with our 3 other Congressional Honor recipients. Stephen Dow grew up in Duluth, Georgia, and Brentwood, California, where he graduated from high school in 1987. He was active in athletics, the Future Farmers of America, and he enjoyed riding bulls in local rodeos. He enlisted in the Marine Corps shortly after graduating from high school. On June 20th, 2007, Staff Sergeant Wilson was 2 months into his 3rd tour in Iraq when he was killed while conducting combat operations in the Al-Anbar province. Staff Sergeant Wilson was 28 years old. Staff Sergeant Wilson is interred here in Columbarium 5, that way. Drew Jensen grew up in Damascus, Oregon, which is very close to here, where he graduated from Sam Barlow High School in 1998. He entered West Point that year and graduated from the United States Military Academy in 2002. On May 7, 2007, during his 2nd tour in Iraq, while serving with the 2nd Infantry Division, Captain Jensen was leading a mission to recover Bradley fighting vehicles, to recover a Bradley fighting vehicle that had been damaged by a roadside bomb. Leaving the relative safety of a covered position to aid another soldier, Jensen was struck by small arms fire from which he would later die. Drew Jensen was 27 years old. Captain Jensen is interred here in Section S, which is over there. These are the brief stories of 6 heroes, service members who made that ultimate sacrifice for our country. Their stories are all unique. However, what they have in common is sacrifice. Today we honor their sacrifices as it represents the sacrifice of 1,280,000 individual men and women who have died for the United States of America. I want to thank you all for being here today. Your presence and the presence of Americans all around the country at similar events honors our fallen heroes and demonstrates the importance and the meaning of Memorial Day. We recognize and set aside Memorial Day as a time to solemnly remember our fallen. For 250 years, they were devoted to and sacrificed for the cause of liberty, not only for our country, but more personally for the freedom and the way of life that you and I enjoy today. To everyone here who's remembering a loved one, I wish you comfort and peace. May God bless our departed heroes. May God protect the men and women who continue to serve our country in uniform, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.